Here we are at Kresge at MIT. Scott Kirsner, who we've been following for his Cinematech blog, his writing in Variety and the New York Times for a number of years. One of the real observers in convergence in Hollywood and digital media, and it's great to have you on the show, Scott.
It's great to bump into you at this conference.
Outstanding. So tell us about the book, first of all. What's happening with your new book?
The new book is called Inventing the Movies. It just came out this month, September, and it's a technological history of Hollywood from the very beginnings, the days of Thomas Edison and George Eastman and the Warner Brothers, to the era that we're in right now with Steve Jobs and the iPod and YouTube. And the kind of meta theme of the whole thing is that Hollywood's history is this clash of new ideas, innovations like the iPod or YouTube, and the establishment, which really wants to preserve the old technologies and the status quo. And back to the very earliest days of Hollywood, people said, oh, movies are always going to be silent. This talky stuff isn't going to last. It's just going to be a fad. So every new technology that's come along, they've had that same exact response of, oh, this doesn't really matter that much.
So how can you write a book? It's a little early on, isn't it? No, seriously. What are sort of the takeaways in terms of new media right now and what's happening?
You can never write a book if you wait for everything to play out, right? But I think the takeaways are really that innovators tend to really underestimate how hard it is to change an established industry that's successful and making money, and that a lot of it is about understanding the psychology of the people that don't want to change, right? So there are still lots of studio executives that would rather release their movies on Blu-ray DVDs and get that nice DVD profit margin instead of selling them on iTunes and the internet, which is a lower profit margin, but that's the way a lot of people want to buy them. There's still a lot of cinematographers in Hollywood that don't want to shoot with a digital camera. They want to shoot on film. And so I think the key is really that innovators need to think a lot about the people who are going to eventually use their technology and why might they not want to change.
There's a lot of talk about standardization, the digital...
DCI.
Yeah, DCI, there you go. What's the prospects for that, for some kind of standardization of downloadable media? Or is that going to happen? Is Apple going to stand to the side, or what might happen?
I think there are two kinds of standardization that are happening right now. There's Apple, which is kind of creating this de facto standard with iTunes and that format. And that does seem to be winning. Apple's doing a great job. They're selling 50,000 movies, selling and renting 50,000 movies a day, which makes them the big dog when it comes to downloadable movies. And then, in movie theaters, there's a DCI standard that's kind of the standard for digital projection. And one of the things that's happening there is that because the standard was created by the studios, it tends to favor studio movies. And if you're an independent filmmaker who wants to get your movie into the neighborhood movie theater, DCI kind of makes it challenging. Big surprise there that the big guys are trying to squeeze out the little guys. Never happened before, right?
So Scott, tell us about your conference at Berkeley in a couple of weeks.
It's an event called The Conversation, and it's really focused on the future of movies and video games and internet video, and the premise is just that those three fields are interacting and interrelating like they never have before. So let's have a conversation, let's talk about what it all means. I think that you and I both go to a lot of digital media and digital Hollywood events. A lot of them tend to be for the Silicon Valley crowd and the software developers who are making, great new software for delivering all this content. We wanted this event to be really primarily for the content creators, so the filmmakers and the video people who want to create content and tell stories. And yeah, they're going to be techies and entrepreneurs there, but we want it to have that really creative focus to it. So it's in October out at the Pacific Film Archive in Berkeley.
And what's the name of it and how do you find it?
It's called The Conversation, and the URL is theconversationspot.com. It's kind of an old school 1990s URL, I guess.
And Scott, briefly, how did you sort of get involved with covering this industry?
Haphazardly, like everyone who fell into it. I mean, it seemed like in 2005, all the internet video stuff was so exciting, and it just felt like it was creating this whole new genre and this whole new business. So I started writing about it then, and I got a random invitation to go to Skywalker Ranch in Marin County that year to go to an event that was sort of Hollywood directors talking about new technology, and it was just really cool to be around people like James Cameron and the founders of Pixar and Robert Rodriguez, and hear them talking both about the potential of new technology and also about how the industry was so resistant to new technology. So that kind of was the starting point, for the book and for the blog and for all my interest in the field.